this working? Yep, I think so. Never made a baking video before. I showered for this video as well, which is weird because I didn't when I went to the shop earlier. But then we are all standing 2 meters apart, so they don't know. They don't know that I hadn't. They didn't know that I hadn't showered. So today I thought I would make a baking tutorial type video, which I've never done before and nobody has asked me to do, but I'm bored, and it has all been sort of started or inspired by my beautiful friend Katie, who must have gotten tired of my first world problem rants about how I couldn't get self-raising flour anywhere. So a few days ago on our doorstep arrived this. My beautiful friend Katie dropped me off some self-raising flour, and it says, please make me into something delicious. So that's my plan for today. So given that I've got the caveat of making something delicious, I also wanted to make it relatively simple because getting hold of other ingredients can also be a challenge. So today I'm going to make Victoria sponge, but because I'm extra, I decided that I would make mini Victoria sponges, which means more work, but also more fun. Yes, I keep my baking supplies in an adorable wicker basket. Is there any other way? What you are going to need to make this recipe is the all-important and much missed self-raising flour. Caster sugar? I barely met her sugar. No Ruth. Any type of margarine. I always use this. I always use stork because I find it makes lighter, fluffier cakes. Eggs, look, these were raised. These are from Happy Chickens. Baking powder, vanilla extract, and for the filling, so normally you would do like a sweetened whipped cream, which is very delicious, and I wanted to do, but I couldn't get any cream. So I'm going to make buttercream instead. So for that you would need some icing sugar and some more of this. Also fruit or jam. I'm working with leftover jam from the last time I baked something. I'm sure it'll be fine. Who knows? Baking's all about experimenting. Baking's all about trying new things and potentially out-of-date jam. You're also going to need a large bowl. I also have, I'm lucky because I have one of these standing mixers, which is kind of gross because I do a lot of baking and also I'm lazy, but I'm grateful of that today because I don't want to beat anything, because I just did a cardio workout which was everything hurts, but that does mean I get to eat one of these cakes when they're made, so swings and roundabouts. A baking pan, just one, because I'm only going to make one cake, but I'm going to cut it in half. I think we're about ready to actually start baking, but there is one more thing. Yeah, hair down's cute and everything, but I'm not baking that way. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my oven on and preheat it to about 170 because it's fan assisted. Now that's done, I'm going to line my baking tin. So again, in an effort to be quick and kind of lazy, I use these liners for my pans. You can just cut out a circle from a piece of greaseproof paper and put it in the bottom and you should be okay. I just realized that I missed the most important utensil you're going to use in this entire experience, and that is a sieve. So many of my friends always say to me, why don't my cakes taste like yours? I say, did you sieve the flour? And they say, no, I couldn't be bothered. That seems like a pointless step. Do not skip the sieve. It's the most important part of the process. Sieving your flour high above the bowl is going to get all the air into the mixture, and that is what's going to make it light and fluffy, and that's what we want from cake. Right, that's my small rant over, I promise. So, first of all, you're going to measure out 115 grams of caster sugar. Then you're going to add in 115 grams of the margarine. Make sure to wash your hands first, although in this current climate you should be doing that anyway. Now this is an all-in-one sponge recipe, so technically you can chuck all the ingredients into the mixer and just let it do its job, but I do it a slightly different way because I found that it makes for lighter, fluffier cakes, which, as you might have noticed, is a particular concern of mine. Whisk those two together on a high speed until the mixture is nice and creamy. Next, take the all-important self-raising flour and measure out 115 grams. Add 1 level teaspoon of baking powder. Now you have that, take the most important utensil, yes, we know Ruth, and sieve it nice and high above the bowl. Now you need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And whisk all of those together. Now you're going to need 2 eggs. As you can see, I'm adding them one at a time as the mixer still goes. If you have a handheld whisk, that's fine. Just add them one at a time and whisk in between. Now I'm going to turn my whisker up to a high speed and let it do its magic for 1 minute. Keep checking that the ingredients aren't gathering on the side of the bowl. Make sure to incorporate everything. And you should end up with a really light and creamy mixture, just like this. Grab your cake pan and spoon the mixture into it, and then level it out at the top. And now you can pop it in the oven. Tequila! Once you've got your cake in the oven, you can either tidy up the mess that you made, or you can do your buttercream. So we're going to take our icing sugar, which is going to get everywhere because that is just the want of icing sugar. If anyone's ever baked before, they know that. For buttercream, you just double the icing sugar to the amount of margarine you're using. For this, I did 100 grams of margarine and 200 grams of icing sugar. And now we're going to use the important utensil again. We're going to sieve the icing sugar, and that's because you don't want any lumps to form in your buttercream. You want it to be a really nice, smooth, creamy texture. Put those two together and give them a good whisk. Now you can add a splash of milk to your buttercream. But if, like me, you found that made your mixture a little bit too runny, you can just add a little bit more icing sugar to the mixture and whisk until you're happy with the result. So now that you've got all of your buttercream mixed and ready, just going to pop it in something and put it to one side because you're going to need to let the cake cool before you can do anything. I'm going to put mine to one side in an icing bag, and that's just because I'm going to ice the buttercream on. But you don't have to do that, you can just spread it on with a knife. If you want to join me in being a little bit extra and you don't have any icing bags, one of those food or freezer plastic bags will work just as well. Transferring icing into an icing bag is usually a complete nightmare. What I usually do is I take a pint glass that I have stolen from a local pub. Thanks, Wetherspoons. I actually don't feel that bad about using it now that I know you won't pay your staff. So I'm going to put the icing bag into the pint glass. And wrap the top around so it looks like this. So it just gives you a bit of stability when you're putting the icing in. Start scooping your buttercream into the icing bag. At periods you're going to have to start pushing it down and then adding more. And there you have it, a bag of icing ready to use later. I'm going to stick it in the fridge just to cool it off, but before I use it I will take it out about 20 minutes before because I don't want it to be just too cold for icing. So I'm about to take the cake out of the oven and I'm just gonna test it and make sure it's okay. Ooh, look at the, oh, glamorous recycling. Let's see if the cake is done. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this to come out clear on either side. So, here she is. I'm going to take this same glass, same stolen pint glass as before. Thanks with the spoons, don't feel bad about it. Put it upside down. This is just cool to the touch now. Just like Bake Off. Flip your cake onto a cooling rack and remove the greaseproof paper. Now I'm going to put her aside to cool. You never want to cut a cake when it's hot, it'll fall apart. You need to wait until it's cooled down before you can cut it in anyway. So now I'm going to leave her to cool, I'm going to tidy up my mess, I'm going to watch Eurovision, and if I'm too drunk to finish this after that, I'll show you the rest tomorrow. I Eurovisioned a little too hard. So, because I Eurovisioned too hard, I had to put my cake to sleep overnight. Here it is. You can see it's a little bit wonky, but that doesn't really matter because we're going to be cutting it up. I didn't leave it out like this, by the way. I put it in a tin. And now we're going to do really the fun bit, which is cutting it up and turning it into tiny Victoria sponges, hopefully. I have this weird camera angle because I decided to put the tripod down ready for the next shot, but I hadn't finished telling you what I was going to use, so enjoy. I have, and I got it for a pretty cheap price from Lakeland, I think. This is basically a bit of cheese wire, like attached to a coat hanger. You could make one of these yourself, but this is what I'm going to be using to cut through my cake. But you can just as easily use a normal kitchen knife. You just have to go in through one side and then the other until you meet in the middle. However you're cutting your cake, make sure to stabilize it with a hand on top. Now you can separate out the top and the bottom of our Victoria sponges. Next, you're going to want to take a small cookie cutter and cut out as many rounds as possible. Place the bottom rounds on a plate. Now cut out the same amount of rounds from the top. You can use the extra cake cuttings along with any leftover buttercream icing to make really lovely cake pops. Or you could just add them to your pile of quarantine snacks. Okay, so now I've got all my bits and pieces ready here. I've taken my buttercream out of the fridge and it's just a nice softness now, so it should pipe nicely. Not forgetting the jam. I'm just going to spread the jam on just like you could do with the buttercream icing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the tip off this icing bag and I'm going to ice just a few circles of the buttercream onto the bottom tier of the sponge cake. Yeah, and let's see how that goes. Now you just need to ice a few rings of the buttercream onto the bottom tier. Make sure to keep away from the edge of the cake because when you put the top on, the icing will spread. Nice and easy. It doesn't have to look very pretty because it's going under more cake, so no need to worry too much. As you can see, I've got a lot of buttercream icing left, but that's okay because that goes towards part of my plan for the cut-off cake. So no cake and no icing is ever wasted in this house. Now for the jam. You don't really need me to talk you through this step, so I'm just going to use this time to talk about how I prefer raspberry jam because raspberry jam is the greatest. Baking is all about experimenting and trying new things, so I just had a thought that I think a teaspoon might be better for this because you can just drop the blob of jam onto the cake. And I was right! Okay, so now we have all of the components, we just need to put it together. I've definitely put too much jam on some of these, but who doesn't like a lot of jam in their cakes? Now you just need to gingerly place the top sponge onto the bottom sponge and press down just lightly. You don't want the filling to spill out over the edge. Okay. That's basically it. I just have one more step just to give it the final flourish. So So for the final step, you will need your trusty sieve. See, it's the most important baking utensil you could ever own. Very important. Teaspoon and just a little bit of icing sugar. See, a sieve never stops being handy. A light dusting of icing sugar and... So there you have it. They look kind of fancy and like you put in a lot of effort, but really you only baked one cake. You didn't even bake two. So now it's time for us to try them. Yeah, that's good. I hope you can give this a go. Stay sane, stay safe, eat cake.